All right, ready to get lost in Westeros.
Always.
Today we're diving deep into George R. R. Martin's A Game of Thrones.
Lots to unpack there.
You guys gave us a ton of excerpts, but
Yeah.
instead of getting lost in the weeds,
Easy to do with Martin, right?
totally, we're going to focus on how brilliantly he builds this world.
It's seriously impressive, the depth he packs into everything. Not just the characters, but the way families, history, even the landscape all kind of weave together.
Speaking of landscapes, the descriptions of Winterfell and the Eyrie blew me away. Talk about opposites attract, but for castles.
Right. You've got Winterfell, this massive ancient fortress, as unforgiving as the North itself.
And then there's the Eyrie, practically floating in the clouds.
Like the Aarons built it to escape reality.
But it's more than just looks. Those places get under your skin, like literally shape the people who live there.
100%.
Think about Catelyn Stark. She's so out of place in Winterfell's Godswood.
Totally. She even describes it as like this ancient, almost suffocating forest, especially compared to those bright, airy gardens she's used to back at River Run.
Makes you feel how different those cultures are, north and south.
Subtly done, but so powerful.
Like the environment itself reflects the people. And speaking of reflections, there are all these nods to the past, right? Robert's Rebellion whispers about the Mad King, the whole Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark tragedy.
Like history's a character itself.
Right. It's not just background noise, it's haunting them. You can see how Robert Baratheon, even as king, is still messed up over Lyanna's death.
Absolutely. Colors all his relationships, especially with the Lannisters, even with Ned.
And Daenerys, clinging to those broken stories of her family's downfall, thanks to Viserys.
Poor girl. Talk about baggage.
Seriously, it makes you wonder how heavy that legacy weighs on her, even at that age.
Martin's brilliant at using those glimpses of the past to make the present even more intense.
Okay, time to untangle the web of allegiances. Keeping track of who's on whose side in Westeros. Not easy.
You got that right.
You got the major houses, Starks, Lannisters, Baratheons, all these marriages, ancient oaths, not to mention a ton of shared history.
And yet those bonds are always being tested, right from the start. I mean, take Lord Walder Frey. The man's practically bragging about how little he cares about oaths.
He even admits he only fights battles he knows he can win.
What's in it for me? That's Frey's motto. He shows how self-preservation trumps everything, especially when you're talking about those in power.
And then there's Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer. Talk about a morally gray area. Did he betray everyone?
Yeah.
Or save lives? Martin keeps you guessing.
He makes you question everything. Right and wrong, what loyalty even means, especially when power is involved.
Makes you realize there are always different sides to the story. And a new generation is stuck right in the middle. Jon, Robb, Daenerys, Sansa, Arya, facing impossible situations.
Thrown to the wolves, practically.
And they have to grow up fast. Take Arya, more into sword fighting than embroidery, even if it breaks all the rules. And those lessons from Syrio Forel, way more useful than knowing how to curtsy.
Forging her own path, especially in that world, finding her strength.
Then you have Jon Snow, burdened by being a bastard, just wants to belong, and his decision to join the Night's Watch, giving up his name, his claim to Winterfell, it reminds me of his dad. Duty above all else.
Definitely a parallel there. But also, is he following his dad's lead or breaking free, choosing a different kind of duty, away from the games of power? Jon's making his own way.
It's like those who feel like outsiders, they see the world differently.
Maybe they're the only ones who can. See the cracks in the system and change it.
Speaking of seeing things differently, we can't forget the magic sprinkled throughout. It's subtle, but it's there. Those direwolves, tied to the Stark kids.
And Daenerys, sticking by those dragon eggs, even though everyone thinks they're useless.
But they're not useless, are they?
Not at all. Those eggs, the whispers of old magic beyond the wall, it's a constant reminder. There are forces at play here, older and maybe even stronger than any king or queen.
And Bran, haunted by dreams of climbing and that three-eyed crow. What's that all about?
Pure magic realism. Those dreams are strange, beautiful, and kind of terrifying all at once, and they hint at something bigger. Like Bran's tapped into something ancient, a destiny he never imagined. Almost like we're on the edge of something huge, right? Wondering what those dreams mean. For Bran, sure, but for all of Westeros, too.
And that touch of magic keeps you hooked. But it's the human stuff that really gets me. These characters playing for keeps. Someone could say, it's just a book. Why care about these fictional people? What would you tell them?
Martin makes them real, even when they mess up big time. What drives them, their flaws, how they survive all the backstabbing. It's relatable, even with dragons and magic thrown in.
Like a weird mirror, yeah. See ourselves in them. Speaking of, the Lannisters. The family everyone loves to hate. Loaded, ruthless, powerful. Tywin Lannister.
Yeah.
What a piece of work. That guy's ambition is off the charts.
Total mastermind, big picture guy, makes the tough calls, even if it means someone else pays the price, to keep his family on top. And Cersei, she's got that same fire, maybe even more so.
And fiercely protective of her kids. Joffrey, especially.
Right, it's what drives her, even when it takes her to some dark places.
And that's what makes them so interesting. Not just good or bad, they're messy. Love, ambition, protecting their own, even if it means breaking the rules.
Totally human, even when they're horrible.
And Jaime, the Kingslayer. Such a contradiction. Arrogant, capable of awful things yet. There's a tenderness there sometimes. And his thing with Cersei, textbook Martin, those tangled relationships.
One for the ages, that's for sure. Toxic, but you get it. Bound together by ambition, by their past. That intense love that can destroy them both.
Then there's the Starks. Total opposite of the Lannisters, right? Honor, loyalty, their connection to the North. Ned Stark's, especially, he sticks out in King's Landing, like a fish out of water. Too used to the North's honesty to deal with the games everyone's playing in the capital.
And it's his downfall. Like, being a good guy doesn't mean you win. Sometimes it's a weakness, especially when the bad guys play dirty.
His poor kids, thrown into chaos. Each got to figure it out on their own. Jon goes to the wall, Sansa caught in all the lies, Arya just trying to survive. It's rough watching them lose their innocence.
But that's how they grow. They have to. Facing the truth about power, loyalty, the real dangers Westeros is up against.
About those dangers, the Dothraki, like a force of nature, those guys. Fierce, nomadic, their whole culture is alien to Westeros. Right. What do you make of Daenerys' journey with them? From pawn in her brother's game to Khaleesi, a leader.
Shows how strong she is, how she adapts. She could have broken, but she embraces it, learns their language, earns their respect. Pretty amazing.
And we can't forget those dragon eggs. She doesn't become Mother of Dragons for nothing.
That's for sure. Daenerys' story, far from over. Those eggs, that's power waiting to explode.
Okay, so we've got the characters, the relationships, this feeling that everything's about to change. But what is it about Westeros itself that grabs you?
It's huge, what Martin created, but it feels real. History, cultures, the map itself.
You feel how massive it is. The frozen north, the Dornish marches, each part so different, it shapes the people. The land is a character.
Exactly. It sucks you in. You can feel the cold, smell the sea, even the heat of King's Landing.
It's part of the story, not just scenery. And speaking of part of the story, that threat from beyond the wall, the others, they're not just monsters in the dark, are they? Something way scarier.
The unknown, right, the darkness that could wipe everything out. Like Martin saying, even with all the human drama, there are things out there way more dangerous.
Gives me chills just thinking about it. And most of the characters, too busy fighting each other to even notice.
That's the scary part. The way Martin sets up this clash, the stuff they're worried about right now versus this huge thing coming their way. Like a train wreck, you know it's going to be bad, but you can't look away.
Like he's saying, all our stupid human tricks, they might be what do us in. Even with magic around. Speaking of those glimpses we get, Bran's visions, Daenerys, and those dragons, is that hope? Can these old powers actually fight the darkness?
Good question. Martin likes to keep us guessing. Magic's a two-way street, right? Amazing power, but dangerous, unpredictable. Think about what happened when the Targaryens thought they could control dragons.
Careful what you wish for.
Exactly. There are no easy answers with Martin. He makes you face it. Power's a drug. Ambition gets you in trouble. And every choice you make, it matters.
Okay, so we've gone deep on Game of Thrones. What's the one thing you want listeners to take away?
Don't miss the details. Little moments, things people say, even descriptions that seem random, they mean something. They're clues.
Like he's inviting us to play the game too. Figure it out alongside the characters.
Yeah, and as you read on, remember this. Every action ripples out. Even something small can change everything. For one person or a whole kingdom.
A world where good and evil, it's not always clear. Power is a dangerous game. And the past, it never stays buried. This is a story that sticks with you long after you've finished reading.